There is that story about the Hindu saint who was traveling with a group of his followers when they came to a pond and they were thirsty. But as they were drinking from the pond, the saint noticed that there was a scorpion struggling in the middle of the pond, drowning. So he waded out into the pond and gently lifted the scorpion into his palm. But the scorpion immediately bit him, and the saint's face turned white, but he continued to walk out of the pond. But as he was stepping onto the sand, the scorpion bit him once again. And this time the saint's knees buckled from under him, but the scorpion ran off as the saint collapsed. But after his followers had revived him, his followers asked him, "Why did you do that? Why did you save that scorpion when you know that scorpions bite?" And the saint replied, "It is the nature of scorpions to bite, and this is my nature." And then there's a story of another saint who was on pilgrimage when he came to a certain village, and he was about to enter a little grove of trees where he would sit to find respite, when several passers-by said to him, Don't go in there, there's a snake in there, there's a viper who attacks people and scares out children." And so the saint heard what they said, but still he went in to the grove of trees, and there was the great snake who raised its head up in front of him. But the saint admonished the snake and said, "How dare you strike people and frighten their children?" And he proceeded to teach the snake about non-hurting, non-himsa. And so the snake took on what the saint was saying. And after resting a while in the grove of trees, the saint moved on. But some long while later he was passing that way again. He thought, "I wonder how my friend the snake is getting on." So he went into the grove of trees and he looked around. He could not find the snake until finally he saw it curled up in a corner trying to shield itself. It had wounds all over its body. It was looking thin and emaciated. And the saint said, "Well, what happened to you?" And the snake in a quiet voice said, "Well, you taught me about non-himsa and non-hurting, and I practiced what you said, but now the children throw stones at me, and I can't even go out and find myself food to eat, and I think I'm dying." And the saint admonished him again and said, "You foolish snake, you have to be true to your nature. I didn't tell you that you couldn't hiss." And there's a personal anecdote that some of you already know. Because in those years with Divine Mother, when she asked me to sit beside her, supposedly to tell people who she was, I had read many, many books. And the stories began from there, and the stories came from that reading, no doubt about that. But when I sat beside Divine Mother and she asked me to speak, I would never have prepared the stories. The stories just came, and I did not know where those stories came from. But then there came a time when Divine Mother said to me, "The things that you say to people are too high. They can't understand what you're talking about." And I was quite shattered. So I went home and I cried and cried. What could I do? But in that and after that crying, I realized that I had learned obedience, and I allowed that story to come, whatever story it was. And I could not change that again. This is where I rested. So I continued in the way it had been before. But I can ask you, was I being true to my real nature? Was that the lesson that I learned in that moment from Divine Mother? What do these stories tell us? What is our true nature that we have to come to stand firm in, uncompromisingly? Recognizing that the saint's nature or true nature was different from the nature of the scorpion. What is this true nature? That we come to the place that we have to be true to. Is it our truth? What is this true nature? Seemingly individual to each of us. The nature of the scorpion, the nature of the saint, and so forth. Can you tell me, what is your thought about what it was that Divine Mother was testing me on?
To be your true self.
Yes.
And you could have easily then went home and cried and decided that you better have a different approach, a different thing because of what Divine Mother had said to you. But instead you just kept doing what you were doing because that it was truly what came out.
Yes.
That was the true thing.
Yes.
Because I think we all have our different truths, so we have to live by whatever that truth is for our individual real self.
Yes.
I remember many years ago I was doing some work with some nuns down at Gordonville, and when I was driving down on this particular evening, I had this sense of what obedience meant, and anyway I expressed that to Sister Nora, and she said, "Yes, do you know what obedience is?" And that's obedi something in the Latin, and it doesn't mean to do what you're told, but to listen intensely.
Right.
And when in that our true nature is our God nature.
Yes. Right. So what's your true nature?
True nature is expressing every day in every moment.
Yes, absolutely. No more dialogue, no more debate between this and this, is it? No more second guessing what is there to be said or done. Isn't it so? It stops the debate. It stops the self-doubt, isn't it? And it allows us to recognize a fearlessness that is not from valor or competitiveness. Wouldn't you agree?
But then all the judgment has to stop as well.
Certainly.
We have to leave that behind, and I don't know if they're just challenges of being judged all the time, like you've been judged with the stories.
Certainly.
We just need to stop that.
Yes.
And judging ourselves as well.
Yes. Second guessing ourselves.
I feel like being comfortable,
Yes.
as I am.
Yes.
That's, I think, a test for myself.
Yes.
If it's uncomfortable, it's
Yes.
not
Then
nature.
it's not nature. It's not a true nature. Yes. And how do we know we now rest in that?
Because there isn't any dialogue going on.
Exactly.
It just comes and we just do it.
That's right. There's
And
no dialogue.
Our body tells us if it feels good,
Yes.
then it's okay. But if it doesn't, I think we're being told something.
We get more in tune with the signs. Yes.
But that will only work if you worked on your conditioning and belief systems others put on you first. Like that you see them as what's yours and what isn't.
Well, we know our pathway. We've tried to please everybody, do what others told us, isn't it? Until the force inside of ourselves gets so great in one way or another that you can't keep it out any longer. Like tapping in oil, well, okay, you've got to get rid of the sludge first. And life does that for us, brings along those situations, isn't it? And then you tap oil and it flows and you can't stop it and it enriches ourself in life. Isn't that the metaphor for it? Do we have a choice? Have we had a choice?
No.
No. Thank you.